Today in History. It's July 21st, and we continue with our journey to the past.
We do indeed. We have two events to share with our listeners today, and we're going to get to that in just a moment. First, here is my quiz question. One of the most famous fictional wizards in history, an icon in books and movies, is number one, Harry Potter, number two, Mary Poppins. One more time. One of the most famous fictional characters, fictional wizards, that's the key word, wizard, in history, an icon in books and movies is number one, Harry Potter, number two, Mary Poppins. If you know the answer, text in at pounder sharp 1045 for 51, or leave us a message on our Bandi board and you could win an Usan. And with that, let's find out what's on the list for today. Today in history. In 1899, Ernest Hemingway was born, and in 2007, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows was published.
1899년 오늘은 20세기를 빛낸 작가 어니스트 해밍웨이가 태어난 날이었고요. 2007년에는 해리포터와 죽음의 성물이 출간된 날이기도 합니다.
That's interesting. We were talking about Hemingway just a few minutes ago, right?
And Harry Potter.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. So we begin today with one of the more influential writers of the 20th century, Ernest Hemingway, who became a spokesperson for the World War I generation and a literary role model for subsequent writers.
That's right. 세계 1차 대전 세대의 대변인이자 또 후대 문학적 롤모델이 된 사람이죠. Ernest Hemingway. And Hemingway's works have become staple literary cornerstones known for their hard-boiled style, as defined by many critics. And they've influenced not only the literary world, but also the silver screen.
That's right, and that's not all. The extent of Hemingway's influence reaches far beyond the stars, as a minor planet was named after him in 1978. I didn't know that. There are also countless restaurants and bars named after him, as well as a line of furniture. Furniture? Wow, okay. A fountain pen and a collection of clothes carrying his style and memory. Wow, so you can wear Ernest Hemingway, sit on Ernest Hemingway, eat at Ernest Hemingway,
That's right.
and write with Ernest Hemingway.
네, 엄청나게 큰 영향을 미쳤는데요. 가구, 식당 등 옷. Yeah, I didn't know.
Almost everything, right?
Almost everything. But his hard-boiled style was not only a representation of his books, but also a way of living. Hemingway enjoyed hunting, fishing, and, of course, spending many hours in solitude.
Moreover, he became the quintessential image of rough and ruggedness. During his life, Hemingway survived anthrax, malaria, skin cancer, and pneumonia. He lived through diabetes, 2 plane crashes, a ruptured kidney, hepatitis, a ruptured spleen, a fractured skull, and a crushed vertebrae. Really? That's amazing. Is he a cat?
정말 온갖 역경을 극복을 했는데 pneumonia, 폐렴이죠. anthrax 하면 탄저, hepatitis, 간염. 정말 거친 남자의 전형적인 모습 이렇게 설명을 했는데 the contrary to this tough image, I guess Hemingway also had a very soft spot. He loved cats. Keeping, them at homes, dozens of them around him, but they all had one thing in common. All his cats had 6 toes.
Oh, that's interesting.
6 toes.
Yeah. So more about him. The author of The Sun Also Rises and The Old Man and the Sea also published a recipe for apple pie. In fact, he had a lot of recipes for food, and some of them even ended up being museum pieces. So not just a novel writer, but also a recipe writer as well.
네,
Fun,
많은
right?
책들과 또 함께 레시피도 출간을 했다고 하네요. Okay, now we move to a more recent era when the fastest-selling book in history was published on this day in 2007.
And that was the long-awaited and highly expected last installment of the Harry Potter series written by J.K. Rowling, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows.
네, J.K. Rowling의 해리포터와의 죽음의 성물. It was released simultaneously in 93 countries and translated into more than 120 languages. The book broke sales records that are still prevalent today. Now, in the first 24 hours following its release, 15 million copies were sold. 네, 93개국, 120개 언어로 번역되어 판매가 되었는데요. 판매 기록을 갱신을 하고 지금까지 안 깨지고 있다고 합니다. 1,500만 부가 판매되었다고 하고요.
Pretty impressive. Well, the previous record, 9 million in its first day, had been held by Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, the previous Harry Potter installment, no less. Pretty impressive.
Yes, and at some point it was reported that 15 books were sold in 1 second. 15 books in 1 second. And by June of the following year, worldwide sales were reportedly around 44 million. 네, 1초에 15권씩 팔렸다고 하네요.
So everybody in the world loves Harry Potter except for Jennifer.
Except for me.
All right, before we finish up today in history, the answer to the quiz question, one of the most famous fictional wizards in history, an icon in books and movies, is number 1, Harry Potter. That's it for today in history. And when we come back, Paul joins us in the studio for today's Sports World. Here's Daft Punk and Pharrell. Get lucky.